Well, hello everyone. I hope you're all doing so well. Welcome to March. We are doing a monthly reset routine, so make sure you grab yourself a cuppa and get everything organized, ready to reset for the new month ahead. On my agenda over the next couple of days, today we are going to do our deep cleaning of the designated spots in the house for March. And then I also want to do my financial reset, track my spending from February, have a look at what things I did purchase as part of my kind of no buy, low buy 2025, and then also compare February 2025 spending to last year's spending. I also want to do a little bit of planning for this month, mostly just in terms of events that we've got coming up. I've got my nan's birthday. We're doing like a little surprise dinner for her. I've got my wedding anniversary, 2 years married, and then also my mum, dad, Hunter and I are going to go on a little road trip down the coast. I can't believe we've got 2 road trips happening a month apart. Like, that's just crazy, but also really cool and something to look forward to as well. And then also obviously planning out just my video content and things that I've got coming up on a week-to-week basis. We've got to review our February books, and as of this moment, I've not finished any of them. So I've like scheduled the filming of the February reads in a couple of days. So I guess I've given myself a couple of days grace to smash out as much reading as possible. And then we've got to pick our TBR for March. So exciting. Things are happening. We're getting organized. We're getting reset for the month ahead. Grab yourself a cuppa and let's get into it. All right, so the first thing we're doing is cleaning, but I've got to check what area of the house I designated for March, and that is bedrooms. So that's going to include our master bedroom and then the other 3 rooms. So this one, our spare room, and Hunter's room. I won't deep clean our master bath, but I will probably just give it like a little bit of a freshen up while I'm at it, because I do have bathrooms as its own category. So it is time to get the country tunes or like podcast happening, round up all my cleaning supplies, and let's get into the cleaning. We're gonna start off in Hunter's room because he will need to go down for a sleep shortly. I don't need to wash any of his bed linen because I did that last week and it remains pretty clean for a baby, but I do need to put away some clean clothes, new nappies, new wipes, go around, dust everything, and give it a good vacuum.
There is a life I lead in this city, hurrying to cut my teeth. I can take what I need to get by.
Now, I realize as I'm editing this, yes, I did give the rooms a good clean, but I possibly didn't give them a deep clean because there are some bits that I would typically do on a deep clean that I didn't do while cleaning the bedrooms today. So some of those would include going through all of the stuff in each room and getting rid of anything that I want to declutter, whether it's to donate or see if a family member would like it. In Hunter's room, I would also go through his cupboard and drawers and pull out any clothes that no longer fit and put those in the cupboard in the spare room. But I had pretty much kept on top of like any decluttering and clothes changeover, so I didn't need to do those 2. Some other things that I could have also done includes wiping down the inside of the windows, pulling out any sort of more lightweight furniture and giving a vacuum behind that. cleaning the carpet if there's any sort of stains or like more walk-through areas that just need like a good carpet clean. And then on the bed in our bedroom, I might typically like let that to air out and potentially even put some bicarb over it to deodorize, and then vacuum that up later prior to making it with some fresh linen. So hopefully that gives you some ideas and motivation if you are looking to do a deep clean in your bedrooms or any other area of the house.
What you told me. Wait, hold on. Put me together, take me back where I belong. I want it all. I had a feeling, but the feeling is all gone. Wait, hold on. Put me together, take me back where I belong. I want it all. I had a feeling, but the feeling is all gone. Feeling is all gone. Feeling is all gone. Feeling is all gone. We got time on our side. We're in a state of hope. I need you on my fire. I want you to know that every time you're away, I long for you so much I can find my way. We got everything here, at least to stay alive. And the time that we share makes it all worthwhile. Got this place on our own. Do you feel that we got something strong? And I saw you walking the line, and the truth may come as a surprise that with you I feel alive. You'll be the last one I think about. We got time on our side. We're in a state of hope. I need you on my fire. I want you to know that every time you're away, I long for you so much I can find my way. And I saw you walking the line, and the truth may come as a surprise that with you I feel alive. You'll be the last one.
Now I'm just doing a little bit of planning, putting some key events in my diary, and then also trying to brainstorm and plan out any content for this month for YouTube. So if you do have any recommendations or suggestions, make sure you leave those in the comments down below.
Miracle that you and I are finally here. I saw you walking the line.
February has been a good month financially. So I've just done my tallies for my monthly spending. So on groceries this month, I spent $781, which is $100 less than February last year. But either way, that is still a fantastic figure, and that really shows that I'm able to get my $200 or less a week for groceries in. Transport was $80, which is fantastic. Eating out was $30, another great figure, and that was, we just had fish and chips as a family the other day for lunch, so that's fantastic. Utilities was $248, which is pretty well on par with every other month, so can't really say or anything or complain about that. For home, it was $0, awesome. Last year, I spent significantly more on home for February. I spent like over $2,000, and that was obviously because I was still furnishing this house, and so I was lay-buying or paying off different furniture and, you know, putting in our blinds and whatnot. So that was just kind of a necessary expense at that point in time. Business was $0, whereas last year it was $217 because I was still paying my Teachers Federation, so big saving there. Health was $36, so obviously I went to the chemist and had to buy different things, whether it was medication or sunscreen or whatever it may be. Donations was $10, and the kind of more abnormal or like larger expense this month was shopping, and that was $232, which is pretty large considering that I'm doing a low buy, and honestly majority of that amount is books. I have bought a couple of different arrays of books for both myself and Hunter, a good stack of them secondhand, so obviously that portion of the figure is quite small because you can pick up a book for like $1 or $2, but then I also bought some off Amazon, which is new as well, and from the bookshop as well, which is new. I bought a glue stick, I bought some printer ink. What else did I buy? I bought a souvenir for myself and for Hunter from the zoo when we went on our out west trip. I think that that is pretty much it, but the majority of that figure is actually books, which was on my approved shopping list, so I'm not mad about that. And what I also did is I went into my net banking app and I changed all of the transactions that were relating to our holiday, whether that was activities we did, food that we bought, snacks that we bought for the trip, and I changed them from whatever category they were in, whether they were food, shopping, etc. And I made them all part of the travel and holidays category so that I knew exactly how much I spent for our trip. So excluding accommodation, I spent $617, and that was all of our meals out, all of our snacks, our entry to the Japanese gardens at Cowra, our entry to the zoo. So I feel like that's a pretty decent figure, I suppose. I think that it helped. We only had one dinner out, and that was at the RSL club in Cowra, and we kind of just realized that dinner time, like when things open, and Hunter's schedule and his bedtime didn't quite align, so it was probably, you know, just a better strategy for us to get either takeaway or bits and pieces that we could make, and whip that up in like a little kitchenette from wherever we were staying, and I feel like that really helped us to lower our overall cost. We had a couple of breakfasts as well that we just had at the cabin or apartment, and I think having an apartment that has, or like having some sort of serviced apartment that has like a bit of a kitchenette with either a stove or a microwave is really handy if you're traveling with kids or if you're traveling and you just want to reduce your overall expenses. It's really nice to be able to go out and experience the cafes and restaurants for different places, and I'm glad that we were able to like pick specific spots that we wanted to go out and actually spend the time and money to actually sit down and have a meal. But it was also nicer and just more practical, I guess, to be able to have a couple of on-the-go type snacks and meals as well. Overall though, super happy with my February expenses. I mean, if I wanted to be even more strict and strategic, I could really cut down those, you know, shopping trips where I pick up books for myself and Hunter. It is honestly my Achilles heel, definitely one of my weaknesses. But I rationalize it by saying, well, it's something that I love to read. I love to read to Hunter. We go through so many books together. So it's kind of one of those hard things where it's really tricky to draw a line. I, wherever possible, try and make use of what's available at the library or buying secondhand from our used bookshops. But there are just some things you just can't pick up from those locations, and you do need to purchase new. So here is me justifying my book obsession, essentially. What a glorious segue. It is time to talk about my February reads, and I definitely have a bit of a mixed bag. So the first one that I read was a reread, and it's the Apricot Memoirs. It's a book of poetry by Tess Guinery. I have read this a couple of times, and it's just one of those ones that, like, if ever I just feel the draw or the inclination, I'll just go and pick it up. So safe to say that that is a tried and true and enjoyable one. So I'm not necessarily going to review it or rate it or whatnot. I did also have like a sabbatical, if you will, from reading, because we went away on a family holiday for 5 days at the sort of start of February, and I didn't take any books. So that really meant that I was like under the pump to try and finish these when I got home. So one of the first ones I finished off was The Safe Place by Anna Downs, and it says on the bottom here, a total page turner. She's nailed it, and I do beg to differ. I think it took me up to like 200 pages for anything remotely like interesting to happen, and for me to finally, I wouldn't even say get into it, because I don't know that I was ever like really drawn into it. Even at the end, like when more action was happening, it was sort of just blah. It was just sort of humming along for so long. So the pacing was definitely an issue. Characterization was definitely an issue. Like, all of these characters are weird, and I guess that's part of the storyline. But because of that, you can never really get into like them and their lives and their story that much. So for me, this is probably going to be a 3. There was so many times where I was like, oh, do I want to just stop reading this? It's not necessarily that it was bad, it's just that it wasn't great. So that's an unfortunate one. But fortunately, I read, Unfortunately Yours by Tessa Bailey, and I was really not looking forward to this. If you watched my February reset routine, I had read the prequel, I guess, to this book, which is Secretly Yours, and two of the main characters from that story also feature as minor characters in this story. And I was thinking that because I didn't like that book that much, I wouldn't like this one either, but that was totally not the case. I felt like Secretly Yours could have just not existed, and probably should have just not existed. I just felt like the romance between those two characters, just, there wasn't a great match. The plot was just not it, and I was worried that because of that I wouldn't like this one either. I had seen these two main characters in that storyline, and they kind of didn't really endear themselves to me, but this book really redeemed it and did a switcheroo. I feel like the romance, which was definitely more an enemies to lovers sorta, and forced proximity type romance. It definitely had like a lot more spice to it, probably more than was necessary at some times, but definitely the banter between the two characters just made it a lot more interesting and lively and funny as well. But I just felt like there was a lot of character development going on here. I feel like the plot of it, there was a lot of complications, which sort of made it a bit more intriguing to read. So not only was this better than the first one, but I'm glad that I read this because it redeemed the fact that The Safe Place was not a great book. So I would probably rate this as maybe a 4 out of 5. So we are picking up, which is good. I also read the second Emily Wilds by Heather Fawcett. It's Map of the Other Lands. I liked the first one in this series. I feel like I'm slowly trying to weave my way back into fantasy, and this is a good series to do that. It's cozy fantasy. It definitely has stakes, but it would be considered more low fantasy as opposed to high fantasy, in the sense that it's not like super dangerous and like action based, but I would also argue that there is a lot of world building going on in this, and the complications that exist are intriguing enough to keep you reading, but it's not designed so that it would feel scary or threatening, if you will. And one of the things that I like about this series is that she has really gone into a lot of depth in the world building, in the sense that the main character, Emily, is a dryadologist, which is she studies fairies and the fairy realm. And she's Heather Fawcett's kind of created like this whole, I guess, like history of the Fae. So for instance, in a lot of her pages, she will have these little footnotes where it will reference like other scholars and texts and Fae like history and lore and different things. And I think another interesting thing that she does is her character voice. So each of the chapters is a diary entry from, or a journal entry from Emily, and Emily is like very nerdy, academic, no nonsense type character, and the way that she speaks and her internal dialogue kind of replicates that. So it is very formally and academically written, but that's not a turn off. I feel like it just adds to the character and the uniqueness of the story. So I would definitely recommend this series. I enjoyed this one possibly as much, maybe even more than the first one. The only sort of negative thing that I will say is that pacing does seem to be an issue. I wouldn't necessarily say that it was slow paced at the start. I would say that the first 3/4 of the book are at a good pace, like there's enough happening, there's problems, it's sort of moving along. But then the last quarter of the book happens really quickly, and that is in both this one and the first one. The main quest, if you will, and problem and climax of it just all sort of tumbles together, and it feels like she's like, oh, I've built all this stuff up and now everything needs to happen and I'm running out of pages and I need to get it done really quickly. And I don't know if that's a good thing, like it keeps you going and just like wraps up the story, or if it's a bad thing because you don't get enough like time with the character exploring and like figuring out the crux of the storyline. So that's just my little critique of that, but I would definitely rate that as a 4 out of 5 also. My final book I got at some point within the month, so I'm not quite finished it yet. I'm up to here, so I still do have a sizable amount to go. I've gotten through a bit over 300 pages, and I think I have maybe like 100 or so to go. It's Academy for Liars by Alexis Henderson, for those born with magic in their blood, and it says, saturated with violence, desire and power, it's a book with blood on its lips. And I just feel really similarly about this one that I did to The Safe Place. I'm just not getting into it, and I can't truly put my finger on why. I think for one reason, I don't really engage with the characters that much. Even the main character, she's kind of a bit blur, which is such a shame because I feel like the premise of this book and the storyline is so intriguing and interesting. It has so much potential, but it's just not hitting it for me. So Lennon gets a mysterious call inviting her to go to this school called Drayton, and it's essentially a persuasion school. So it's kind of about sort of mind control, manipulation, psychology-ish, and as she's going there and like learning this skill, which she didn't even know she had, there sort of is like this undercurrent of darkness and danger lurking, and you don't necessarily know what it is. And then things start to unravel at the school, like the characters, the other students essentially and teachers are losing their minds, and it seems like Lennon has these powers that can maybe either stop bad things from happening or potentially make them worse. But the thing is, like, I'm 300 pages in and it's only just starting to get good. Like, there was a lot of I guess building up and backstory and things like that, and just a lot of like her going to school and like going to classes and making friends and figuring things out that I feel like just, I don't know if it's meant to exist there as backstory that's essential to what's coming next, but pacing is definitely an issue. Characters are definitely an issue. There's sort of like this meant to be romance going on between her and her professor, but it's just not hitting, and so I just don't know why it exists there at all, because it's just really an annoyance. Yeah, so obviously I'm not finished it yet, so things could change in the last 100 pages, but it annoys me to have to read a book, and this has happened a few times where I'm like not into it for so many pages before it finally gets good. My friend Claire says that she only reads the first 50 pages of a book, and if it hasn't hooked her in that time, she just scraps it, which is very brutal. But I do understand that, because you don't want to waste your time reading a book that's just not it. So I feel like for me at the moment, like this is probably maybe a 3.5. We'll see if things change in the last like 100 or so pages, but like I feel like February wasn't a great reading month for me. I mean, we had these two which weren't that great, and even the two that I did have that were 4s, I mean, I would have liked to have gotten a 4.5 in there at least. I mean, finding a 5 is hard these days, but if I could have got a 4.5, it would have at least made a bit more of a balance to the reading month. But we'll press on to my March reads. For March, I literally have the most random selection of books ever. So I just kind of picked them because they were on like the top shelf and I hadn't read them. The rest of my TBR kind of exists down here, so I wanted to get those ones done, so I knew that everything else was in the one place. So the first one is Elle Kennedy's Good Girl Complex, and I've actually had this book for quite some time, so I really needed to get it off the TBR. I'm maybe clinging to the essence of summer there, but then I have this one, Blame It on the Mistletoe. I know it's not Christmas time, but we are kind of going for like a nice upbeat pink theme at least. This sounds like the book version and the modern version of The Holiday, which is one of my favorite, I guess, holiday / Christmas movies. So I feel like this is going to be up my alley as well, definitely providing the cozy vibes. And then randomly when I was at the library, this always happens, I go to the library and I just find so many books that I want to read, but I found this one, Hex Appeal, because I've got like a lot of romance going on there. I needed like a bit of a cozy fantasy type romance as well. It's just a bunch of hocus pocus. It's by Kate Johnson. Definitely my type of cozy romantasy, I think, and I like having something like a little bit kind of witchy in there as well. I read Rewitched at the end of last year, and I really liked that one, and I've been seeing a lot of these type of ones existing at the library, so I'm keen to get into that as well. So I feel very hopeful and optimistic about my March reads. And with that, it's time to round out this video. I feel really organized and excited for March, and I hope you guys do also. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe down below. I upload new ones every single week. With that being said, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your week, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye guys.